I just watched the finale of season 2 of Rings of Power. This attack against the Balrog feels like a metal album cover. He's kind of confused, and then she's like, "Oh, look, it's Narsil." I mean, this is not a good use of your skill set. What are you doing? God, I'm disappointed in you, Sauron. Looking at your resume, you should be better than this. You should. What a shame. What a shame. So, that was the end of season 2. I would say, in many ways, season 2 was stronger than season 1, but it also. I have even less enthusiasm at the end of this season than I did at the end of season 1. Now, that might just be because they have now, at this point, passed the only part I was really interested in, which was the Celebrimbor Sauron stuff, and now we're going into stuff that I have less interest in. So that might contribute to my feelings on that. I mean, if you break down what actually happened this season. In Numenor, the queen has a coronation that ends up backfiring, and Pharazôn ends up being king, but that sort of happens off screen. And then Elendil gets into a fight with Pharazôn's son, and in that tussle someone dies, and then he gets put on trial, and then he gets thrown to a sea serpent, but not really, because Muriel does it instead, but she's fine. And then afterwards, they collect all of her followers and say, actually, she worked for Sauron the whole time, so you're all traitors. And then Elendil runs out of the city, and then that's it. That's what happened this season. Things don't really flow into each other. It doesn't make a lot of narrative sense. It's just like there's no story momentum. Okay, so that is an issue. Then the dwarves, their mountain is crumbling or collapsing or something, and the elves given rings to help this, and they're clearly corrupted, so the king becomes kind of greed obsessed, and Durin has a revolt against him, sort of, and then he breaks through a wall, sees a Balrog, the Balrog and him kills his father, and then he might become king. That's the end of that one. That one works as a story spanning an entire season. It just, I think the delivery of it made it less narratively satisfying than it could have been. Isildur wakes up in a spider cave, then gets out of that, meets a girl, falls in love with a girl that turns out to maybe be on the bad guy's side, but not really, but maybe. And then, meets up with other Southlands characters and helps them out. And now he's back on a ship to go back home. That's what happened this season. Arondir lost the love of his life and is kind of on a vengeance quest, which fails. Then he gets stabbed by the guy he wanted vengeance against, and which nothing comes up of that because he's fine in the next scene, and that's it. Who else is there? Nori and the stranger go to the east, which then suddenly Poppy's there too, and then they get separated because of a sand tornado, and Gandalf meets Tom Bombadil, and they have a little Empire Strikes Back story, while Nori and Poppy meet desert hobbits and befriend them, sort of, and then he goes to save them at the desert hobbits and has one confrontation with the wizard, and the wizard throws rocks anywhere and then leaves. And that's the end of season. A lot of these things feel like things that should fit in the beginning of a season, but because all of these things are happening at the same time, they don't have time to just tell one story, so everything is kind of at the beginning and then rush to the end. Kind of at the beginning and then rush to the end. All the meat of a story is kind of gone. And then Celebrimbor and Sauron and Galadriel stuff, that ended in a way that felt like the end of a season. I'll give it that. There was a lot of problems with it. I liked some of the concepts in Celebrimbor and Sauron's storyline, and there is an arc there. There is a story with a resolution and a climax and a finale in that story. It's just tragically underdeveloped, and so much time is spent on all these other fragments of stories that it feels there's so much untapped potential. There's a friendship there that we don't really get to see because they're racing to every like plot point. There's no time to breathe. There's no time to get familiar with the characters or their dynamics or fall in love with Eregion. I mean, the fall of Eregion, which in concept is so tragic, you don't feel because you never really got to know this city. Every scene in Eregion takes place in like the same set, and you don't feel the wonder of that city, the glory of that city. I mean, this is a city with magic elvish blacksmiths trading with dwarves in a friendship that is unique in the entirety of Tolkien's history, and we don't get to see it. It's just kind of in the background. If we fell in love with it, the fall of it would rip your heart out. Frankly, we should when that city was falling, our hearts should be ripped out, and we should feel the horror and the loss. But we don't. We don't feel that loss in our hearts. Intellectually, I know the loss, but you don't feel it. And we needed to feel it. Celebrimbor is the same way. Celebrimbor is greatness. I mean, he achieved greatness, he is greatness, and he was glorious. And they don't show a smidgen of that person, so we don't really understand what we've lost in his death. There's so much that could have been done in that storyline, and I mean, I know I'm biased because that was the storyline that I was interested in from the beginning and that I went into this show wanting to see, and so I know I'm biased saying like sideline all these other stories, focus on that, but I do think I have a point in that, first of all, the title of the show implies that that's what this story is supposed to be about. And also, it is clearly the most important from a narrative perspective. These rings will decide the fate of the world. When we cut to hobbits doing hobbit things, it doesn't have the same weight. When Isildur is having some romance with this random wild lady, all you can think of is, okay, well, when can we get back to the rings that will define this age? The antagonist that will define this age. It's a shame. But it did end in a finale fashion, so that's good, I guess. So, I started this series a couple weeks ago because I started watching Rings of Power years ago. I didn't feel like it was for me, so I stopped, and then I met a friend at work who really liked it, and it got her into the Silmarillion. And so I was like, okay, I'll give it another shot. And so I did, and season 2 dropped while I was giving it another shot, and so I kept going, and I've reached the end of that. And I have enjoyed that, because this was like my water cooler show. I got to talk to my friend about it every week, and it was a lot of fun. So in that way, I had a satisfying experience, because I got to have lovely conversations with my friend. But I don't think the show is very good. As an adaptation, it's an atrocity. As its own thing, it's less of an atrocity, but it still has a lot of errors that should not exist at this level of production. It's frustrating because technology is reaching a point, and the appetite of the populace is at a point where the people who love fantasy and have read fantasy books all their lives can finally get a chance to see these things on screen. And it makes one so excited for the future, and it's so hopeful to see certain things put on the screen. And this hurts our chances here when they come out and they're this bad, right? I want these to succeed because I want more fantasy TV. I do. But, Suits are not very smart. They're going to be like, oh, it didn't do well, so let's stop all our fantasy TV shows. When in reality, the reason why it didn't do well is because the show's not very good. Not because it's fantasy. All throughout my life, Mom always would take us to see fantasy movies and fantasy TV shows. Always. Even when they're not great. Because we always wanted to support these things because we want more of them, even when they're bad. And I still hold to that, where I want to support fantasy shows and I want to support fantasy movies because I want more of them. It is very difficult to do that when you adapt something that I love in a way that makes me angry. Especially when it seems like you're trying to make me angry on purpose. I mean, The Kiss was intentionally trying to make people angry. And you admitted that. That was an intentional choice. You made creative decisions explicitly to garner a reaction because you knew it would blow up on social media. But you should not be making creative decisions based on whether they will blow up on social media. That's not what you should be doing. You should make creative decisions that make sense within the context of the story that you are doing. But that's not what happened. You make decisions that don't make sense. So we've reached the end of this little journey. Will I touch on Rings of Power again? Probably, because I do find its narrative structure problems interesting, just as an analysis. I like breaking down stories. It helps my own work of trying to figure out, kind of take stories apart and figure out what worked and what didn't. I enjoy that. So I probably will do more analysis on Rings of Power, just because I find that interesting. But I will not be doing that soon. I'm going to give myself like a month break. I think it will be helpful for me to look at it with more fresh eyes, and I'll be more fair and more reasonable about it if I, take a step back, look at other things, cleanse the palate, maybe watch a cozy kid show or two, something a little different, so that I can come back to it and think about it in a new light. I want to thank everyone who tuned in to watch this. I'll still be releasing videos. It won't be Rings of Power for at least a month. Do subscribe if you want to be notified when I do some deeper Rings of Power analysis videos. I think will be in a month or so. I want to thank everyone who tuned in and subscribed. This last month has been surreal. I mean, that first video kind of single-handedly got me monetized. That was very unexpected, and I mean, when I started doing this, I thought I'd get monetized maybe, and if so, like in 2 years, and being able to pay my phone bill with YouTube money, super unexpected, and I thank you guys for that, because you guys made that happen, and that was just such a delight. I don't even thanks. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. If you would like to support more, or would like to read a story that also has like magic blacksmiths and besieged cities and like evil monsters and corruption and betrayal, do check out my book, Bone Song. The first 10 chapters are completely free, and every chapter afterwards is like 10 cents, sometimes less. So if that interests you guys, please feel free to go check it out. And for those that have been reading, the new chapter is officially out. I apologize. It's definitely, I brought it out late, but in my defense, it is the longest chapter so far, and it is still only 10 cents to read it. So have fun with that. Thank you so much, guys, for all the people who've read it and commented about it. I really appreciate that. And anyway, this has been very fun. It's made watching this show a lot more entertaining, hearing people's comments and debating. And I love the debate. Anyway, I look forward to talking to my friend about it at work. It'll be fun. I love hearing her perspective. It's significantly more positive than mine. I enjoy looking at the show through her lens. Anyway, you've heard the show through my lens enough. I guess I'll see you in some other review. Bye-bye.